This is the 10 o'clock news, the Bay Area's most complete nighttime television report with the award-winning Channel 2 news team.
Good evening. I'm Julie Hayner. You might have noticed we began a second look a bit differently tonight. What you just saw is the 10 o'clock news opening from 1979. For more than 3 decades, when the opening of our 10 o'clock news ended, a familiar face said hello.
Good evening, I'm Dennis Richmond.
This month, Dennis Richmond will retire after 40 years here at Channel 2. Dennis actually began here at KTVU in another department, but soon moved into the newsroom and became a reporter. In 1976, he began anchoring the 10 o'clock news and has been ever since. In 1999, the Society of Professional Journalists honored Dennis with its Lifetime Achievement Award. And to mark the occasion, KTVU's Bob McKenzie prepared this look back at Dennis's career.
What do we remember now about the great East Bay Hills firestorm of 1991? For many of us, it's a few searing pictures and Dennis Richmond's voice telling us about it.
Pushed by 30-mile-an-hour winds, flames swept down along the Oakland Berkeley Hills, destroying everything in its path. There are reports of as many as 10 dead. An Oakland battalion chief is among the dead. The number of injured is climbing.
When you think about it, Dennis's voice is part of our memory of most of the events that mattered to us in the past 30 years. When the Loma Prieta earthquake hit us in 1989, Dennis and his co-anchor, Elaine Corral, went on the air in KTVU's parking lot because our building was without power. And when they got back into the news studio that day, they stayed there, reporting on the staggering damage and loss of life, but also on examples of endurance and courage.
Faith is standing by in Oakland, in the area of the Cypress structure that collapsed. Faith?
Yes, Dennis, I'm at 24th and Cypress. We just had a dramatic rescue.
You're, of course, seeing a first tonight. We have been on the air now for about 5 straight hours. We haven't seen any commercials.
No.
No breaks, and we will be here.
Good evening.
Sorry, we're tired.
It's a long night. I'm Elaine Corral.
And I'm Dennis Richmond.
At times of crisis and confusion, an anchorman becomes more than a guy who reads the news. He's a center of calm in the storm and a conduit for us to talk to one another. It's a role not everyone can carry, but Dennis has been building his credibility in the news business for a long time. Yes, that skinny guy in the beard is Dennis Richmond, who 25 years ago wasn't quite the smooth article he is today, but even then, he had the kind of authority you get when you work hard at something.
The hearings will continue before Judge Alfonso Zerpoli tomorrow.
In those days, KTVU's newsroom was about the size of a walk-in closet, but Dennis Richmond didn't take up much space in it. The Patricia Hearst kidnapping was Dennis's story, and when Dan White shot and killed Mayor George Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk, White's lawyer argued that his client just happened to have a gun with him when he went to City Hall that day in 1978. It took a sharp young journalist named Dennis Richmond to ask exactly the right question.
But I did say that other supervisors and perhaps other City Hall personnel do carry firearms presently and have carried them in the past. Yeah.
Do you know if the other people who do carry weapons also carry 10 extra rounds in their pockets?
Over the years, Dennis has not only brought us the bad news, but the whole fabric of cultural change in 3 kaleidoscopic decades.
We'll see the best of the disco dancers, the best sound system, so Bob suggests you roll back the carpet, kick off your shoes, because it's disco time.
Oh, about that pink suit and that hair. It's hard to believe now, but people used to dress that way. Suits in Easter egg colors, ties as wide as footballs. All that was the height of fashion then. Dennis wore this stuff as well as anyone, maybe better than most, but we don't miss it. KTVU's 10 o'clock news program was called Action News then, and Dennis wanted it to be more than just a name. His series of reports on dangerous jobs put him out on the edge and put viewers on the edge of their chairs.
Join me on Action News and I'll explain what I've found, such as hanging from the top of a 47-story building.
And when the Blue Angels offered to take a reporter into the wild blue yonder, guess who volunteered?
Okay, y'all set?
All set.
Here we go, raise our nose. How we doing?
Okay so far.
And I'm Dennis Richmond.
KTVU's management has studies showing that when cataclysmic or disturbing events happen, more Bay Area viewers turn to this station than to any other. That must be partly because viewers know they will hear the news from Dennis.
Official Washington and just about the entire nation is still reeling right now with news of the tragic explosion of Space Shuttle Challenger.
By the way, Dennis doesn't broadcast his personal life, and neither will we. But just to give you the basics, he has a wife, a daughter, a stepson, a house in an East Bay suburb, and a large dog. He works out daily, plays a little tennis, takes a lot of vitamins, and likes to watch nature shows on television. Okay? Is he better at the job than other anchormen? Well, now we're in the realm of intangibles and subjective judgment. We can say this: the people who work with Dennis every day like him and respect him. That's probably the award he values most.
Still to come on A Second Look, we'll show you some of the biggest stories Dennis covered as a reporter in the 1970s. And a bit later, when Dennis quit smoking, he shared with viewers how he did it. But first, here's a look at something viewers did not see many years ago: the outtakes from a news brief taping, which is part of our KTVU Funny Reel.
I cleared my throat. I have a cold. That wasn't gum.
Okay, I got it now. All right. Okay, I can do it now.
Will you come on, please?
All right, I can do it now.
Okay.
What if this was live?
We'd be in deep trouble.
Fired. I can't do that.
No, it's good evening. Now.
Good evening. An estimated 34 people survived an Iraqi plane crash today. Dennis is making me do this now.
I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing.
You're sitting here snickering.
I
almost had it.
One of the biggest stories Dennis Richmond covered early in his career was the kidnapping, capture, and trial of newspaper heiress Patty Hearst. He also covered the trials of those connected with the group that kidnapped Hearst, the Symbionese Liberation Army. In 1976, Stephen Solia was charged with taking part in the SLA's robbery of a bank in the Sacramento suburb of Carmichael. He would eventually be acquitted. Here is Dennis's report from the day Solia testified on his own behalf.
The man called Patricia Hearst's underground lover said he first met Patty Hearst in a Berkeley apartment along with SLA fugitives Bill and Emily Harris. Stephen Solia said his sister Kathy, now a fugitive, arranged that meeting. Solia was living with Patty Hearst when she was arrested last September, and today, from the witness stand, he told the court he did not speak to her directly, just nodded and shook hands with the Harrises as they took guns from their bags and nervously kept watch out of windows. From that day in June 1974 until August 1975, when they were captured in San Francisco, Solia said he visited the Harrises several times, talking more and more with Miss Hearst each time, and each time offering the Harrises whatever money he could spare. His attorney, Sheldon Otis, had begun examination of Solia with a straightforward line of questions. Otis, on April 21, 1975, were you in the Crocker National Bank? Solia answered firmly, no, I was not. On to deny holding a shotgun in the even knowing about it. The bank was robbed of $15,000 and a woman customer was killed by a shotgun blast. Solia had been identified by 2 prosecution witnesses, but today he said he was in San Francisco, living on Masonic Avenue with a woman named Emily Toback. The jury listened to all this and to an intriguing story of trips to Sacramento with James Kilgore, also a fugitive now, and of becoming more involved with Miss Hearst each time. He said they took long walks together, even went to Oregon together once, and that they were very close. He even helped Hearst and the fugitives move several times, even though he swears he never joined the small band and didn't like the Harrises. His attorney told reporters why he did so much for the fugitives while professing to dislike them.
I think he explained how strongly he felt about what he had seen happening in Los Angeles, the impact that had on him, the concern he had that those persons might be killed in the same way, and based upon that, he originally took a half a step. It eventually led to a very close relationship with Patricia Hearst, and that caused him to give additional assistance as he testified.
Cross-examination of Solia was not very penetrating, but U.S. Attorney Dwayne Key said he'll have rebuttal witnesses later. Meanwhile, Solia's attorney said he'll present 5 more people who will verify his story, beginning with the woman he claims he was with during the robbery. Dennis Richmond for Action News at the federal courthouse in Sacramento.
Just 2 months after authorities captured Patty Hearst, a former employee of Hearst's father would try to kill President Gerald Ford during Ford's visit to San Francisco. The name of the would-be assassin was Sarah Jane Moore, who would eventually serve 32 years of a life sentence until her parole last December at the age of 72. Here is Dennis Richmond's report from her trial in 1975.
Sarah Jane Moore will make the trip from the San Francisco Hall of Justice to the federal building just one more time after today, and that will be to hear sentence pronounced upon her. She finally convinced the court to accept her guilty plea to charges of attempted assassination after dramatic admissions from the witness stand. She told the court she took her son to school that September day, then picked up her gun in Danville. She went to Union Square, took up a position outside Ford's hotel, and when he came out, she said, quote, "I took out my gun and fired a shot at him." Judge Conte asked, "Did you attempt to murder the president?" She answered quickly, "Yes." Conte continued, "Did you have specific intent to murder? Did you do this willfully? Did you do it with malice? Did you do it with a forethought?" To all the questions, Ms. Moore answered firmly, "Yes." But she hesitated when asked if she was encouraged by anyone. "Was your intention formed alone?" the judge asked. She answered, "On this particular date, yes." Conte, "What about some other date?" Ms. Moore, "I'm not going to answer that." Following that, the U.S. Attorney presented a string of witnesses, all Secret Service, FBI, or San Francisco policemen like Lieutenant Gary Lamos, who told the court Ms. Moore admitted to them that she willfully carried out the act. A strip of news film graphically depicting the moments before, during, and after the shot was shown several times as Ms. Moore watched with her attorney. Judge Conte then read portions of 2 psychiatric reports, both saying she knew what she was doing, though one said her mental state had a kindling effect on her actions. He then accepted the guilty plea. He said any sane jury would find you guilty. He then summoned her to the bench, had the clerk reread the charges, and asked how did she plead. Her reply, soft but firm, guilty. What happens to Sarah Jane Moore next hinges on several factors. Federal Judge Samuel Conte could sentence her to any number of years up to life in prison, or he could impose probation. A recommendation from the U.S. Attorney could have an effect, and any statement she made could have an effect. Her attorney, Federal Public Defender James Hewitt, though still very upset, said he hopes to talk her into at least explaining any mitigating circumstances. Dennis Richmond for Action News, San Francisco.
When we come back on A Second Look, Dennis shares how he quit. Viewers kick the habit. There are times when news anchors get to do what most other people don't.
The man who won the Nobel Prize for Economics said today he doesn't have the vaguest idea what happened to the stock market.
Good news on that. We don't have the vaguest idea what happened on the stock market. That was funny.
There will never be another today. Watch it happen tonight on KTVU. The Emmy Award-winning Action News Team, 10 o'clock, Channel 2.
We continue tonight with our second look at the career of KTVU's Dennis Richmond, who retires this month after 40 years at Channel 2. In 1986, Dennis did a series of reports on a topic which was very important to him and many other viewers: smoking cigarettes. He his efforts to quit smoking. Others also kicked the habit.
I know it looks puzzling, a little bit ironic, and actually it's none of that. It's stupid. I tell myself I watch my diet. I go to the gym every day. I eat less salt, do all the things to stay healthy. And then I suck this poison into my lungs. Like millions of people worldwide, smoking for me was something that I felt I never wanted to do without. I didn't even consider if I could do without it. Now, trying to stop smoking, like a lot of people are learning, is not as easy as it sounds.
If you're using cigarettes to cope with stress and you're trying to quit smoking, you have to make some kind of lifestyle change in regard to your stress. You can't just take the cigarettes away without having to figure out what it is that you're doing, how you're using cigarettes to cope.
Susan Bachagalupa is a facilitator with the American Cancer Society in Oakland. Plainly put, she helps people stop smoking. It's a 7-week seminar, meeting once a week. There are only 8 of us in this seminar. I say us because after too many years of smoking, it's been suggested by several people that I quit.
I have smoked cigarettes since I was 20 years old. That's 22 years. Recently, I've cut down. Now I can say I've finally quit, which means for the first time in a long time, I can do this and feel good about it.
Like many hospitals, Providence offers a stop smoking program. 7 weeks ago, I enrolled along with 9 other people at first. That number was whittled down to 8, then 6. Finally, only 4 of us were left. One of our colleagues, a woman who has had 2 heart bypass operations because of cigarette smoking, is adamant that this time she'll stop smoking or else.
If I cannot make myself stop by the time when I move, that's it. I'm going to give up totally. Smoke, have my 3rd heart attack, and hope it's fatal. That's just about the way I feel.
It's difficult to explain to a non-smoker what it's like to quit. Smoking is a habit that is hard to break.
As overeating is a habit, cigarette smoking is a habit. It's very difficult to change habits. There's also nicotine present that's an addictive drug. Therefore, once you start and establish the habit, then it makes it a little more difficult to stop.
We learned some of the methods needed to quit. After you decide to quit smoking, that's number 1. You start by getting rid of your cigarettes.
Get rid of all your cigarettes everywhere and all your smoking paraphernalia in your house, because as you can see, just because it was available to you, you smoked.
We learned that chewing gum helps kill the craving for cigarettes, or sometimes getting a cold drink of water will stave it off, and sometimes just taking a deep breath helps.
It's like almost like a sigh in a way. Just take a deep breath and then relax.
That Vicks that she had the other night
seems to pass.
Remember though, non-smokers generally weigh more than smokers.
I'm gaining weight.
Oh, 2 days?
I've gained 4 pounds in 2 days.
Definitely hungry.
I weighed myself Tuesday at the gym. I weighed 202. This morning I weighed 206.
Have you been
That's 4 pounds
drinking more water, do you think?
I've been drinking more water, but eating more food.
Uh-huh.
Is that going to subside eventually?
I would think. For some people it does. For, most people it does, sure.
If not, then I have a choice of smoking or being grossly overweight.
And you have to be real careful about setting yourself up for relapse, and that's one of the ways to do it. You sort of start thinking that you're making choices between being grossly overweight and not smoking. And that's really not a choice at this point in time. You're trying to do one thing right now.
The end result is this. After 7 weeks of trying, I can now say I'm a non-smoker. Now, I know a lot of other people have quit, but in a way I'm lucky. I did it before any noticeable medical problems. A lot of people can't say that. Now they're very upset that they even saw cigarettes.
I would get after the United States government for subsidizing a piece of merchandise that's killing people.
I think it's a pretty high price to pay for the pleasure of smoking a cigarette, if you can call it pleasure.
And if I'd have never smoked, I don't think I'd ever got lung cancer.
I'd do just about anything to get people to quit smoking. I don't really think they should even be sold.
If you too want to quit smoking, there are a lot of health agencies out there that are ready and willing to help you. The American Cancer Society is just one. They've got books, pamphlets, even videotapes to help you stop smoking.
When we come back on A Second Look, Dennis Richmond goes flying with the Thunderbirds and gets to take the controls of a multi-million-dollar fighter jet.
Gary Park is on a well-deserved vacation, but when you have someone as versatile as George Washington...
Thanks, Dennis. I'm going to wear a little name tag next time I come on this set.
George Watson is going to do sport.
As we wrap up our second look at the career of KTVU anchor Dennis Richmond, we wanted to show you one of the things television news anchors sometimes get to do that most other people don't. In this case, it was to ride with the Thunderbirds, the Air Force's precision flying team. Here is Dennis's report from September 1995.
We're going straight up.
They say the difference between men and boys is the price of their toys. By no stretch is this sophisticated multi-million-dollar aircraft, an F-16 fighter, a toy. If it was, on the block. Powerful Air Force fighter jet may be the dream of many people, male and female, but when I was invited on this flight, I soon learned it wasn't just to ride along. I'm not just going to be a backseat rider. I'm going to actually fly this thing.
Right, you'll be flying quite a bit, about half the time on the area.
That sounds almost unbelievable to most people. I mean, you have years of experience. How can I just get into this sophisticated aircraft and expect to be able to fly it?
Well, it's not that difficult of an airplane to fly, and I'll be right there watching you, so I'm not going to let you do anything that'll put us in a bad situation.
The F-16 aircraft performed in Desert Storm and more than proved its ability in combat. Once airborne, it can go into a powerful vertical climb, pressing its pilot back into the seat at 4 Gs, 4 times the force of gravity. 12-year veteran Captain Dan Torway took us up. To point out the sophistication and maneuverability of this aircraft, after a brief demonstration, Captain Torway actually handed over the controls.
You can make it go as fast or as slow as you'd like, just based on how much pressure you put. Okay, you have the aircraft?
Okay, here we go.
All right.
To the left. Oh, okay, you got, all right. We spent about an hour in the air with the captain, and much of that time I was actually flying this plane. When we finally returned to Monterey Airport, it was with a feeling of some relief. After all, I had survived a 9G turn, but the exhilaration of having flown this aircraft actually did bring to mind the thrill of a small boy playing with his favorite toy.
We're pointing straight at the ground. I don't know if you heard that.
In the coming weeks, we will continue our look back at Dennis Richmond's career in a series of stories on the 10 o'clock news, including a visit to his home, all leading to his last night on the air, May 21st. And that's it for this week's Second Look. I'm Julie Hayner. Thank you for watching.